The Poet by Waranavich. He woke to the sound of common greenshanks gliding along the shoreline, rubbed the sleep from his eyes with his fingertips, and rose with a stubborn yawn. It was 3 in the afternoon, and on his face were traces of fatigue and worry. Though he had spent the entire night awake, translating poems by Emilio Prados, the outcome was not to his liking. Not even his 10-day trip out of town had managed to ease his spiritual strain or return a smile to his face. He opened the window facing the veranda. The air was scented with lilac jasmine, and the sun, like a cheerful young girl in a long yellow skirt, danced in the blue sky. He remembered he was to go to the rendezvous point to meet Gila, a grove of olive trees behind an abandoned cemetery beside a deep river, a delightful garden with lush trees under whose dappled shade a poetic silence would flow. He dressed in blue trousers and a white shirt adorned with violet flowers, slipped on his summer shoes, tucked his daily journal under his arm, drank a glass of mineral water, picked up his letters from the mailbox at the door, and left the house. On the way, he glanced at the envelopes: the electric company, the phone company, the Poets Association, a friend from Sweden, and one with neither a name nor a return address. Without opening them, he slipped them between the pages of his journal and headed toward the bus stop. The streets were more crowded than usual, and the haste of the people moving to reach their destinations had taken on a worrisome tone. The bus was waiting at the station. He hurried on and sat near the front, beside a plump woman. One by one, the passengers entered until there was no space left, and the bus set off. He took the letters from between the pages of his journal and opened the one from his friend in Sweden. It was one of those literary letters, full of advice and misdirection and semi-intellectual chatter, suited only for such circles, with just 2 significant pieces of news: a nationwide strike by the mine workers and protests by progressive organizations in defense of 4 deported refugees. The bus stopped in front of the city park entrance. He stood up, quickly folded the papers, and returned them to their envelopes. As he got off, he stepped on the ankle of a young man and apologized. From the park to the meeting place was a short walk that he had to take on foot. He passed the street that bordered the southern edge of the park, reached an alley and a small square, at the end of which lay the cemetery. The wind had taken to playing with the orange trees rising on both sides of the alley. Someone sat in the doorway of a house, singing a song from the Gypsies of Seville, his voice mingling with the whistling of a little girl cleaning her window panes. He reached the cemetery and walked around it. A sense of suffocation seized him, and a turmoil beat within his heart. The olive grove awaited him with verdant eyes. He followed the living wall of the garden along the riverbank and reached the ancient olive tree that Gila had named her sapling of peace. He sat at the foot of the tree, closed his eyes to the memory of the past, and lay down upon the grass. His silence did not last. A bird's song disturbed the stillness of his reverie. He opened his eyes and looked at his watch. 10 minutes had passed since the meeting time. This was Gila's first delay. Anxiously, he rose and sat again, leaning against the tree. He opened the envelopes from the electric and phone companies and was disheartened by the rise in prices. Unenthusiastically, he opened the Poets Association envelope, an invitation to a poetry night next month. Then he turned it to the envelope without a sender. He looked around. There was no one nearby. He opened it and saw Gila's handwriting. He was startled, thought it must be a mistake. He looked at the end of the letter. Gila's name and signature left no doubt. He grew worried and, in a distressed state, read the letter. Gila had written, "Hello, my enlightenment. Forgive me for not being able to come to the rendezvous. You know well that I cannot bear to see your eyes when they grow anxious at the sound of words whose hearts are weeping. When I met you, you were a poetic tear for wandering kisses, a bright smile of melody for a night when green was blooming, the dawn of a song in harmony with the transparent pulse of water. And I, a bird of distant flight, yet pulled by a narrow sky. I loved you, and I love you still. When you speak with words struck from the flints of pain, when you light up the night with the lantern of awe, a chained sigh, and when you sing your kindness for the people of the alleys of sorrow. I had told you that in my heart I kept a cottage for you, made of moonlight, of plants, of the blue sky of a sunny morning, and the sweet gaze of eyes that never set. I had told you I would be your companion, your solace, stay by your side, and from the sweet fibers of my feelings, weave you a bed more lovable than the kisses of love. I had told you I loved life and was full of the desire to flourish, and you awakened me, for it had all been a sleep, a dream. From you I learned to be a rock beside the water, wearing a moss-green dress, so that my longing for spring would not lead me to a mirage. From you I learned that silence is the beginning of servitude, and that I must keep the flames burning in my cry. From you I learned that joy belongs to the day of freedom, and I must go now, on the path of that river of light that reaches the gulf of the sun, carrying with it a clear gaze, hands that erase darkness, a smile that breaks no hearts, and a tongue that does not lie. Now I go, poet, with a heart serene and content for the road ahead. Do not worry about me, nor let sorrow take you. I will always be with you, in the song you cultivate, in the cry you allow to bloom, in the green blood of the flower word you nurture, even in the water you wash yourself with, in the air you breathe, in the landscape you behold. I am your enlightenment, a love that is not exclusive. I leave you my smile so you may compose from it a kiss sweeter than kindness, and release it into the morning air, where the sun of joy remains reclusive. And this letter, which is my confession of love, I beg you, by the bright heart of your songs, do not let a drop of grief grow in the tears of your eyes, or allow the night of sorrow to darken the sky of your heart. Whisper my name always with joy, and speak of me with happiness. Be without sunset, my son. He was astonished by what he had read. It was as though silence had begun to fall from the sky, and shadows of stillness wandered around him, placing a cloak of dread upon his shoulders. In shock, he read the letter again and stood up. Sweat poured down his face as he ran from the rendezvous to the nearest phone booth without pause. After dialing a number, he asked to speak with Gila. A voice from the other end replied, "Gila is dead. She set herself on fire in front of the city courthouse in protest against the suffocating oppression ruling the society." Upon hearing this, his head grew heavy, his legs trembled, the phone slipped from his hand, and before he could take a step out of the public phone booth, he collapsed.